Now we always hear like it's pee in the dating pool. Like
It is. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I kid.
yeah.
But I'm for real.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new edition of Four Friends in the Book podcast. I'm Chris Colson, and I'm here with my friends Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, and Laria Reed. And again, we are Four Friends in a Book. So check this out. So if you're new to the channel, Four Friends in a Book is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together. And so we meet here to discuss, review that book, and just have table talk amongst friends. And of course, at the end, we hit you guys with these rants from none other than Mr. Rant Man himself, Isaiah Tukes. So again, if you're new to the channel, go back, check out some old episodes, catch up, get familiar with Four Friends in the Book. And for those that have been supporting us from day one, we thank you guys for your continued support. Continue to like, share, comment, subscribe on all social media platforms. And look, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you guys. If y'all have book recommendations, topics, or just things y'all want to hear from us here on Four Friends in the Book, hit us up. We would definitely love to hear from you guys. So, all right, let's get into it. Book for this month. You know, we love over here on Four Friends in the Book. And so coming off our book from last month, you know, we was in that romance genre. You know, my boy Isaiah, he loved that book. He was all in it. So kind of continuing on that thread, kind of still staying in this this love, this marriage topic. We are reading for this month, the month of June, Marriage Be Hard by Melissa and Kevin Fredericks, also known as KevOnStage and MrsKevOnStage. Just really their expression about marriage and the topic of marriage, and just giving us some real practical information about marriage, about some of the trials and tribulations that they've gone through personally, and just put it in that book format we can kind of just unpack it and learn from it. So kind of I guess what you call it, maybe like a self-help, or what would you really call it? Just kind of relationship book, not fiction, but just some real practical information to kind of help us out here on Four Friends in the Book, and for the rest of you guys as well that just love. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack. Let's discuss. But y'all already know the first question over here. What did you feel about the book? How did you feel about it? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be? And you know, I'm gonna come to my good brother because last month, look, if y'all haven't seen our last month episode, Before I Let Go, Miss Kennedy Ryan, great book, but yeah, my boy Isaiah, he wasn't really feeling that one too much. So hopefully on this one, we gonna get a little different take. So Isaiah, brother, what did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be?
Well, first I want to start out what I like about the book. I do like that Kevin and Melissa do walk you through their experience and their life lessons about their marriage. I do appreciate their open and honest stories and their thoughts that how they actually let us come in. They weren't even, and I actually really do like that they weren't actually pulling any punches. That they used some examples that shared from their provided experience, and they had great points. And what I mostly did not like is a lot of the beginning. I think it was like a little too churchy, even for me growing up in the church. We all have our own experience about life, and what we have experienced through that. But I think it was like a little too churchy, and that's what actually drawed me out. I actually wanted them to be. Some of the experience that they actually did talk about, I think it was a lot of surface level, and I want to go a lot of deeper into like not just what the problem is, but how they actually overcame the problem. But I think a lot of what I got out of the book is that they didn't want to go too deep in like even when they say they had disagreements, they always say that it wasn't about infidelity or any kind of abuse. And I think it was a little more of saving face. But I just wanted them to go further deeper in, even though they did share some type of strong viewpoints. But I just wanted them to go deeper in about what their life experience was, how they actually overcame. They had some good viewpoints, but overall, I gave them a strong 6.5. It was actually a good read, actually a good book. I just felt that I just wanted them to go deeper into the conversation about what they went through in their marriages.
Okay, look, you want that love and hip hop version that
A little bit, the bitch one.
Okay, good. So look, there y'all go these half scale ratings
I
again.
know
Got
already.
a 6.5 to kick it off. And so look, Laria, since you piping up, I'm gonna come to you next. What did you think about this book?
Thought it was cool.
Marriage be hard.
It was a
Very
cool
true.
book. Like it was an easy read. It was very I enjoyed the audible version to get to
Okay.
hear their voices and how they talked about each other. She read her parts and he read his, and I really enjoyed that portion of it. I I enjoyed, of course, the churchy part about it because some people were really raised where that was a part of their lives. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is, like she talked about, this is your stamp of approval, basically being a virgin when you get married. And, like that's the ultimate of all ultimates, but not preparing a person for marriage. And so I enjoyed that part. I like the way they found themselves to counseling and how they're a big proponent for it. I thought that was excellent. It was a good, solid book. I'm kind of like Isaiah in a sense. It was a little surface to me, and I guess that's because we read a lot, and a lot of people really spill their guts in in biographies like that. When they start talking about their lives, they're like, and then, but
Mm-hmm.
they did give us some examples, but it was safe examples. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like deep, deep. It was very clean. You could let your child could be in the car listening
Mm-hmm.
to this audible while you're in there. Some
Mm-hmm.
parts, of course, about the sex or whatever. But even with that, they didn't really say nothing. Like they didn't really say anything in that sense. So I'll give it a solid 7. No halves over here. I don't do that. I don't do those.
Okay. Okay.
I'll give it a
Okay,
7.
okay, 7. Yeah. Well, look, I think it's hard coming off of the last book we read. It was like a true romance novel that was sex scenes and steamy. So yeah, it's probably a big jump from that. So I can
Right.
understand.
That's true.
All right, coming to Miss Kimberly Lake next. What did you think about this book, Marriage Be Hard? And if you had to rate it, what would that be?
I enjoyed the book. I thought, like Laria said, that it's a very practical book with practical advice. But to piggyback off Laria and Isaiah, I think the reason, then I'll come back to my rating and stuff, why they
Mm-hmm.
didn't go so deep. I think it's because they're still working through those things. Because
Mm-hmm.
even the issue she brought up, she was talking about, they were referencing like the pandemic, and I was like, that was but
Mhm.
2 years ago. So I think a lot of stuff
Right.
probably with them is
Mm-hmm.
still freshly being worked through. So that's probably why they kind of stayed kind of surface. Because yeah. But anyway, I enjoyed the book. I listened to the audible, so I heard both their voices. She got emotional at times, like
Mm-hmm.
talking. So I thought that was good. And I just really, the word for me for this book is just practical. I think it gave practical advice about getting married and having realistic expectations in marriage. So I would rate the book. I would actually do a solid 7 as well. I think
Okay.
it's a solid 7, like for
We're
me.
on the same page.
Oh, look. Oh, now you want to be back on the same page. That's good. That's good. No, I agree with you guys. I think it was a very, yeah, practical would definitely be the word. And especially considering, we all kind of connected by the church. That's how we kind of
Mm-hmm.
all know each other. So I think we can definitely relate to that the churchiness and the church feel, and even some of those misconceptions that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of often spread in the church, or things that aren't talked about as far as marriage and relationships. We've covered a lot of books in the past, and the topic always comes up is usually like finance and sex are always like the taboo topics, the things that aren't really talked about, and the things
Mm-hmm.
that usually become a wedge in a marriage and try and kind of set people apart. And you see that in this book as well. So again, very practical examples about marriage, and some real life examples that they kind of walk through. Um, yeah, I wasn't really looking for any deep juicy stuff. I just thought it was cool. I thought it was a different take. Um, some stuff is kind of common sense, common knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Mm-hmm.
think hearing both of their perspectives, from a husband and a wife, and kind of how they felt in that moment was cool. So, good book. If I had to rate it, look, I'm gonna kind of be with my boy. I ain't gonna do no half scale. I think a good six. A good six. It was a good book. It was very practical. Um, I enjoyed it. I listened on Audible as well, and so to hear their voices, um, you know, Kev is a comedian. He was joking, and kind of doing that aspect of it. So it was a good listen for me on Audible. So if I had to rate it, I would give it a six. So we got a 6.5 with two sevens and a six. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
look, we a little better. Look, Isaiah came back in the fold
Ush.
because last episode that boy he was a wild
He
card.
crushed that book. I was like, it wasn't that bad. We
Plead,
read worse.
I played the fifth. Plead the fifth.
Yeah. So let's kind of let's piggyback on some of those discussions we just had and kind of, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, dig a little deeper. So I think so. We're talking about how practical the book was, and again, it's talking about marriage. So marriage be hard. Really giving their perspective as far as some of the hurdles they had to overcome in marriage, some of the false notions that they may have had going into marriage, and even as they're in the process of still trying to figure out their marriage and their relationship and how to parent and all those things. Um so of course none of us here on Four Friends in the Book are married, so we can't really have any major perspective or insight on that aspect of it. But as a single person, were there any particular chapters or any particular topics or points that really kind of resonated or stood out to you as you were listening or reading this book, Marriage Be Hard by Kevin and Melissa Fredericks? And I'm gonna come to Ms. Laria on this one. Was there
I knew you were
anything?
coming to me.
Yeah, was there anything in particular that really stood out just from the single woman's perspective?
Yeah, I was thinking about some of those situations she named, where the girl had baked the cake for him and brought it to the
Mhm.
house. The friend, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
would have. I don't know if I would have waited till it was over with. He would have had to know that, and I would have had to take him to the bedroom on that one. And like, look, I don't know what you're gonna do. I don't know why you got this lady bringing the cake up in my house. Like, that would have been a no. But when they talked about the conflict and how she didn't express herself, I have a tendency to do that. Period. In any relationship, I kind of stuff things down, and then when it comes out, it's not good. And so that's something that I've been working on with making sure I'm not overextending myself because I'll say yes, or because I'll just want to go along to get along.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt
Hmm.
like she did that a lot, and so it became an issue, and then she was trying to get him back with stuff later on, and I think that I kind of had that issue as well because I'd be like, well, you didn't come to my stuff, I ain't going to yours either, you know. And she did that, but it really hurts you in the end when in actuality she could have stated how she felt, talked to him, and not shut down. So and she learned that. And I think when she was talking about it, I was like, dang, that's me. I do that a lot. So yeah, I really identified with that portion of it from her perspective. When she was talking, a lot of what she was saying, I was like, dang, we might have a lot of the same personality traits because I do that too. But yeah, it was good. I enjoyed that portion of it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But look, what was Kevin supposed to do? This woman, he didn't tell this woman to bring no cakes. Like, what was he supposed to do about that?
I would have told him, you need to tell her I'm gonna say something. Because women know we know what we be doing with certain things. Don't get me started now. Some women
That's
know what
true.
they're doing. And she knew she was coming up to that man's house with a wife. And then she texted him talking about no good morning, no like what?
Yeah,
Who
right.
texts that to somebody's husband? Like, come on. No.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah. Now I definitely understand that part, but her showing up with a cake, like
No, 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 no.
he ain't had no
See,
control
y'all
over
are
that.
dudes.
Yeah,
Y'all don't. It's
yeah.
a dude thing. Y'all don't get it.
The radar.
I mean, I
Women,
But
understand it, but
mm-mm.
like, what was he supposed to
No.
do? Like,
He was supposed to be like, don't come out of it like, look, my wife is a little cray cray. Don't bring that cake up in. Like, take that on back to the house. Like, and then she in there bragging on it. She was trying to stunt because she knew his wife was laid back, nice. Like, that's what you get the vibe from her, is that's the way she is. So, yeah. Mm-mm.
yeah. Nah, that's a good point, and I think that was even for me. That was one of my, I guess, favorite chapters. So I think that was chapter 4, jealousy be hard. And so just give y'all some background for those that haven't read already. So they were having some event. What was it? It was a party. Was
His
it a birthday
birthday, it was
party?
his birthday
Yeah, it
party.
was his birthday party. And so Kev has this female friend that decides to show up to the house party, to his birthday party, with a homemade cake. So it's kind of like a potluck. People just bringing stuff, and she brings a cake.
That she made,
Yeah,
homemade,
that she
and then
made.
bragged about.
Yeah,
Yeah. Keep going
and
with it. Tell them
I
the
got,
whole
yeah,
truth.
I got a statement about this. Rick. I'll let you finish, Chris.
yeah. But
No,
so of
I'm
course,
done. Go ahead,
I got.
Isaiah.
I mean, a lot of the book, she seemed like she was mad about stuff. But if you're not communicating with me and you're not telling me how your thoughts and feelings is, I can't mind read. We communicate over here. And when you say
it's
you
all
okay,
over here.
Over
when
here.
you say you okay, that's what I'm going with. You okay, but you can't wait 10 days later and say, "Oh, I was mad by this situation." Like, no, that does not how life work. We're all adults here. Like, if you was mad at something disturbed you, let's address it. Let's fix the moment. But walking around in this silent moment treatment, and you mad about something, I don't know how to handle that.
yeah. So look, man, y'all
I
know
understand.
your boy a quote person, and so one of the things I wrote down that really stood out to me was the sting of a badly worded message can pack a huge
I like
punch.
that.
Whether or not it was your intentions, you're responsible for the impact your words and actions have on your partner. So
Okay,
even in this situation, I don't think it was Kevin's intention for this woman to show up
that's true.
with this cake.
He's
I think he was kind of clueless, and I'll admit I be clueless a lot too. I think men just don't, we don't be on that, man. And like I said, like Isaiah mentioned, if it's not cut and dry, you're not telling
Right.
me. If it's not in my face, I kind of brush it over or whatever. But I do. That was kind of one of the things that really stood out to me because I think sometimes, especially when you're in relationships and partnerships, um, with somebody you care about, those things are hard. And so trying to work through those things
Hmm.
and even understand that even though it may not have been your intention or you didn't maybe mean it to be a certain way, that it could still be received, a certain way, and that you still have to do things to try to accommodate or to try to resolve that situation. So, yeah, there was a few points in the book, and to Isaiah's point, I think that was one of Melissa's things that she was really trying to work through was to be more vocal about things and to get to the root cause of stuff, opposed to just putting these little band-aid fixes on it. And so,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think it was good information. It was very practical about the jealousy thing. I've been on the end of that as well. Like I said, I'm a man. I be clueless, man. I don't, you got to tell me. I don't just be, so
We'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Look, without a pot across my head, like
No,
don't.
I would have had to pull him. I would have had to pull him to the side and be like, "Look, I am very uncomfortable right
Mhm.
now with this woman being in my house bringing a cake for my husband." That's something you talk to the wife about. Like I would never go to a man's house and then talk to his wife. Anyway, as a woman, that's just I don't even be in a man's house and his wife ain't there. I was with a guy friend of mine, my homeboy Corey, and we were at look, I'm giving a whole story.
Yeah.
We was at we was we were at one of his homeboys' house. His wife was there and his wife left. And I told him, I said, we need to go. You ride with me, but I need to go because his wife just left. That's not
Mhm.
it ain't cool to be in another woman's house and her husband there and his homeboy there. I'm with the homeboy, but me and him ain't together, nothing like that. He's like family, but it don't feel right, you
What you got
know?
going over there, Reed?
Huh?
What you got going over there?
Yeah.
I was just saying, it's just certain things as a woman, we have rules, just like dudes have rules about other women. We have rules too. And,
Gotcha. I got you.
we
I
know what we
got
be
you.
doing.
Yeah, I think like I said, y'all know, and men just don't be knowing. But all right, so coming to Miss Lake on this one. Did you have a particular topic or chapter in the book, or even just a lesson learned, or something that you really gained some insight from while reading this book?
I really like the chapter on communication. Um, as I say, Isaiah was saying, she was talking about how she had a problem communicating. But I think what really stuck out to me were like two things. How she was saying having like um honesty, transparency, and vulnerability. Because I had to do a reflection on myself and just in relationships in general, even with people. I had to be like, how often are we really vulnerable with people or really tell them how we feel about something? We might be honest, but then we're not going to be like transparent and vulnerable too. So I think that's something that I took away from the book and just want to practice being not just honest, but vulnerable and transparent about how something made you feel and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And also when they talked about with triggers, working through those, because we all have triggers, but it's our responsibility to work through those things, and other people can't be responsible for things that trigger us. Like that's the inner work we have to do. So those two things. But I really like the chapter on communication because I thought it was really practical again, and it's something that we all can implement, not with just in relationships with love, but like parents, friends, whatever. I think that's something we all should strive to be in our communication: honest, vulnerable, and transparent.
Okay, good, good. All right, let my brother close this one out, man. What did look? Did you have a chapter? Was it a topic? Like, did you learn anything from this book?
I kind of did. I think Kim actually touched on everything I wanted to say as far as like with communication. Too often we expect like this immediate happily ever after once we get into these relationships. However, this couldn't even be further from the truth. The hard work is rarely just getting started when you actually get into the relationship, and it all comes down to one thing: communication. And I think Melissa made, I can't remember what chapter, but she stated that she had to realize that she could not be mad at Kevin for not making her happy until she learned how to make herself happy first. And I think more people need to realize this, that if you aren't happy with your life, you actually need to do what you have to do to take the right steps to actually find your happiness. What you have to find out what you like to do to enjoy yourself. What are your goals? What are your dreams? And it's actually important to have your own life, something that you can actually build on once you actually get into the relationship. And I think a lot of that comes with like that resentment comes when you're not happy and you make your partner's world your world, and you get overshadowed by their dreams, their accomplishments. That's a hard thing to actually live up to. Like if you're not happy with your own life, and plus you don't want to actually put that on your actual partners, that burden of trying to actually make you happy. Like you need to find your niche, your own things that you like to do to make yourself happy. And I'm like Chris. Now I actually found a quote that I like, something I actually read like a while ago. I'll struggle with you as far as like helping you to do what you need to do, but I won't struggle because of you.
All right.
Mm,
I'll
okay.
struggle with you, but I won't struggle because of you. Okay, my boy, look here.
I like it.
You
I know. I
becoming a
like
quote guy.
that.
You got me becoming a quote guy.
That's what's up. Nah, that's good, man. I think if nothing else, the book does cause you to kind of reflect, and also hearing kind of real world examples.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kim mentioned, and like Laria and Isaiah, it's very practical. Um, there's some kind of unspoken things, to Laria's point, that you just, I guess, based on your background, your upbringing, you may know, or be familiar with. Other things, just you have to learn over time, and so sometimes those experiences help to kind of shape that mindset to help us to kind of grow. But yeah, that was good. Good. All right, so I kind of touched on it when we first started. So again, four friends in the book, we kind of all have formed or been connected via the church. We all church kids. So we all grew up in the church and love the Lord and know each other from church or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
um, Melissa and Kevin have that similar background. Like they might have been in church more than I was. Now, Laria, you might have, Kim, I don't know, y'all might can mirror up with them, but I wasn't in church that much. But that was a strong part of their upbringing, and they even described themselves as being kind of churchy, and kind of that being a really a strong factor in their concepts and notion about marriage, sex, relationships. I mean, they were heavily influenced by what they learned or even didn't learn in the church. Um, and so I just wanted to kind of, I guess, get you guys input on that because again, we are kind of all connected via church here. That's kind of how we've all kind of bonded here on Four Friends in the Book. So did your church upbringing or your experiences, as a child, even in adulthood, did they kind of shape or influence you as far as your notions about relationships or marriage? Um, and how did that impact you, or even some of the misconceptions or things that you may not
Mm-hmm.
have learned, or things that weren't talked about because again it was maybe taboo to talk about those things within the church. So I'm gonna come to Miss Lake. What you got for this?
Well, I will say, I mean, I grew up churchy, in the church. My mom has always been a church secretary. My dad a deacon, so I was at church all the time. I will say that I can't relate to Kevin and Melissa their same story because the church, like, I grew up in my formative teenage years and beyond, was Fellowship Bible Baptist Church under Pastor Willie L. Reed Sr. And
Okay.
um the church, and I don't think it's very common for a lot of churches, but Pastor Reed was very pro marriage, family, and even like it was a sex positive environment in the church. Like in sermons, he'd be cracking jokes, and I had to go on marriage retreats, and they'd be off the chain there. I had to even like in my teenage like classrooms and stuff. Shout out to the Vinings. They was open and honest, maybe a little too honest, but it was a very sex positive environment. So I can't say that I had the same experience as Kevin and Melissa, but because they were so positive with marriage, relationship, sex, whatnot, it did shape me, but in a more positive manner. And I think realistic too, because Pastor
Mm-hmm.
Reed to be realistic about being newlyweds and all that kind of stuff. So I think it did shape me, but it made me have a positive and more realistic view of relationships, marriage, and sex and all that. So
Okay, good. Isaiah, what are your thoughts on that topic? Growing up in the church, did that influence your outlook on love, sex, relationships, marriage, or even the fact that you may not have learned as much as you wanted to, or learned too much? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
did the church mold or shape your or influence you in that area?
Well, for me, to an extent, the majority of the decision I make was based on how I was raised. I was raised churchy, church Bible study, like we did it all. But not just being churchy, but my parents raised me to be practical, and they talked to me about situations. They always told me to come to them first, and don't go to your friends, and don't go to the street or the internet. Come to them and talk to them. So I guess that what the difference was, and a lot of the things that even though say that even though all four of us, we actually was raised like churchy, but what I think connected us to us that we're practical, we're realists, like we can actually talk to each other, we're vulnerable with each other, and it's always not about you need to do this, you need to get into the word, even though that's our rock of our foundation. But you were also able to actually come together and we actually talk through situations. I think that's the difference. And when you're just too churchy, that just basically turns me up just a little bit. Like, come on now, we gotta be realistic about each other. Like, I like to work out, and I'm not listening to the best of Shirley Caesar in the gym. Like, like we gotta be realistic in that. Like, I think it's good to have that foundation, but come on, be realistic. Like Kim stated, like Pastor Reed, he was practical. He taught you how to be practical in life decisions and how to make good and smart decisions. Even though our Bible is our first read and our first rock and our foundation, but you still want to actually come with people like you. Once we get out the Bible, we still have to be good stewards of what we actually read and go out and be and make discipleships and bond with different people. But when you becoming too churchy and I can't understand what you're about, and if you just one side, and sometimes being too churchy, you started to turn your nose down just a little bit to other people. You still want to meet people where they are. So I think that's why I said, to an extent, it made me make the best decision I do now, but still I am very practical and I try to still bond and with all different people from all different backgrounds.
Very
That's
good.
good. That's good.
Mhm.
I think for me, so grew up in the church. I don't know if I was churchy. I don't.
You
Yeah, I
wasn't
don't know.
in, you would know
I
you was
know, but
churchy.
Yeah,
if
You
you
wasn't, you
if you was
wasn't there.
Nah, I
if
wasn't
you had Easter
churchy.
practice for the week, you was churchy.
Yeah.
If you ain't been to more than one church service on a Sunday,
I mean, I have, but it wasn't consecutive in all the time. So yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I was
Okay.
It was
I
all the
was maybe
time.
intro to churchy, but I
Yeah.
think for me, I did realize some of the oversights, I guess, because
Mhm.
you know in church there are certain things you just don't talk about.
Mhm.
Whereas there should be a place that you should kind of come and get that information, because like you are in a place of love and a place of fellowship and relationships where you all have a same common goal. Um, so for me in my younger years, yeah, like people just didn't you didn't talk about sex. It was one of those things, kind of similar to what Kevin and Melissa talk about. You were told not to do it, just don't do it. But there was no real background about it. Even marriage, just something you aspire to have, but
Mhm.
not really understanding, I guess, the work that's necessary to have a successful marriage, or even the work that's necessary to be in a successful relationship. So I think sometimes some churches do a disservice in that area because they are resistant or hesitant to talk about some of those touchy or taboo topics. Like we all know these things are going on, and so
Mhm.
they should be discussed in the church as well.
Mhm.
But typically, it's like those, like we always kind of say, sex and finances, like those just be areas where people just be real resistant to really speak on and talk about. Um, and so yeah, growing up, yeah, I didn't really get a lot of that in the church, and that did kind of, I guess, shape some misconceptions and ideas because you don't get the exposure, the information about it. Um, you kind of just form your own ideas of what you think it should be, or what the world may be doing, or what your friends tell you, what you see on TV or
Mhm.
whatever. But I am happy, like I say, even now, to be in a church that those topics are broached a little easier and seem to be more open and honest about having those conversations. Yeah, I was recently on a panel at the church. It's a women's panel where they had like, well, it was a women's, I guess, worship service, and they had like an all male panel. And so I was on the panel, and the discussion got wild. We was talking about sex and everything else, but
In the
again, it
church.
was in the church, and I think
In the church.
I think I think that's necessary,
That's true. That's
because
true.
like I said, these babies ain't coming from nowhere, and everybody ain't getting married. So like, we need to be open and honest about these things and have the discussions. And what better place to have them than inside the church. So, all right. So look, coming to the PK of the group, Miss Laria Reed on this topic. How are you influenced by the church in the areas of just love, sex, marriage, relationships? Like, how did those things influence you? Especially, look, you a PK, so I know you gotta you super churchy.
Mm.
Funny. Well, now that I think about it, my father was always teaching marriage at church, but he was always teaching marriage to me and my brothers at the house too. Like it was always like, okay, when you get married, this is what you need to be doing. Maria, this is the kind of man you need to be looking for. You see how I just did da 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 da. Like I was able to handle things with so he always did real life situations.
Hmm.
So it was always like, he was saying that he wanted to raise us. He was like, I'm raising you to be good people, good Christian people, but I want you to be good spouses to whoever you marry because you're going to have your own family one day. And I'd be like, I'm like 7, and he'd be saying that to me, and I was just like, what? But I didn't realize it until later on. I was like, wow, that was really good that he had started so early with cultivating how to think about others and be considerate, think about, one day I'm going to have my own family. And so my brother Ryan does that with his kids now as well. He's always like, make sure you have that done because one day you're going to have your own wife. And one day you're going to have your own family. And they're like, yeah, because one day, and they tell me that all the time. Because when
Mhm.
I get married and have my family, I'm like, oh, good. And they're like 7 and 3. But yeah, I think that talking about it now creates, like Kim said, that positive
Hmm.
culture of having a family and being able to think of it in good terms, not as in something that's so hard and so, it's like, but knowing that you're ready. And even the title is kind of like, dang, would I even want to get involved in this? Is it that hard? but but anyway, I think that in those terms, I never had that issue. I'm like one of the only PKs I know that didn't have an issue with the church later on. I really had a good balance. And I think that was because my father was a PK and he saw the imbalance in his family. So he always made sure that we weren't raised like that. So yeah. Kudos to Willie Reed.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So, look, if you guys haven't already, Marriage Be Hard, Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. Good read. It's very practical information about their journey of marriage and some of the, preconceived notions, misconceptions of marriage and just their journey of, of love and relationships and even trying to further that as they're still going for. So good read, good selection. So yeah, marriage be hard. I kind of want to pivot a little bit. I want to transition. So marriage be hard, and as I mentioned earlier, so none of us are married, so we can't really speak to the marriage be hard aspect. But do singleness be hard? I want to have a little open discussion, open little dialogue. What do you guys think are some of the, I guess maybe the hardships or some of the problem areas with being single in today's time? Like, is singleness hard? Is singleness hard? I know we talking about marriage be hard, but
It's
is singleness
ghetto.
hard?
It's
There
the
you go. All
hood.
right. So
I
Laria
don't
Reed,
like
come
it.
on.
It gets worse every year.
So look, tell us about that, Laria. Why do you think that? What's going on? We always hear like it's pee in the dating pool, like it.
It is. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I kid. I kid.
Yeah,
But I'm for real.
yeah.
But
So
I'm
look, yeah,
serious.
For real.
yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us about your perspective of singleness in today's time.
I think that, if I'm honest, I just think that our culture is dated out. Like, we've dated too many people. Like I understand I understand arranged marriages now, like the new arranged marriages where families like try to hook they like this might be a good match for you in Indian culture is the new way that they do it. And they'll bring somebody to their daughter and they'll see if it works out and if she likes or whatever. If not, the family goes and gets somebody else. Like I think that's better than us doing it on our because right now it's not working. And I feel like everybody's trying to put this like Keisha got this so and so got this. So if I could just put all four of them together, I could have one. Like you're doing too much dating. It's too much, and then you start dating so many people. When this person hurts you, that person. I mean, think about it. If you 50 and single, you done dated at least two or three people in a decade. So you've been hurt at some point by somebody, and then you bring it over to me, who's sitting over here looking for a husband. Look, I'm airing out all my
I
stuff,
know. Well,
but I'm just saying, it's like I just feel like at this point, for females and for males, we're dating too much. It's too much. Like there's not enough vetting going on before getting to the serious part. I feel like everybody is going too far deep in first month. Like I'm still trying to decide if I want to go eat with you. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we can go get some coffee at Starbucks, but why am I going to dinner with you and getting 90 days? Y'all done slept together, y'all done did like that's I mean, where is the commitment? You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like in our society, we date it's just it's really weird when you really start breaking it down. And I think that everybody's trying to have fun and all this stuff, but it ain't got no longevity in it and it's not cool. So look, I don't even know what the question was. I just got on.
that's her rant.
I done
Your
forgot.
rant.
I didn't ranted for the day. But I'm just saying, I just feel like we're as a culture of Americans, black, white, everybody, we just doing too much. And I understand you want to date and all that. That's cool. But at some point, that y'all got to stop. Like it's too much. It's too much. And I feel like everybody's making their own money. So nobody and that's it's nothing wrong with having your own money, but that doesn't mean you don't need relationship. So, nobody wants to be told what to do when you have to submit to one another. So I just keep dating, keep dating, keep dating. It's just like I said, that's what makes it hood and ghetto.
So singleness is the ghetto right now. Is basically what you're telling me.
I mean, yeah. But I mean, it's cool in the sense of I get to
It's
do what
cool
I
to be in
want
the
to
ghetto.
do. Yeah, it's cool to be together. If you're trying to get married, it's a little hood. But if you're enjoying your life and traveling and doing it's cool. But if you're looking for relationship, you really got to be look going back to the Lord. You got to be in prayer and asking God to send what you need. You know what I'm saying? Because whoo, it's rough out here.
That's funny. Look, anybody else want to jump in on this singleness be hard topic?
I don't know how to comment after that.
I know. I'm like,
So Laria just gave her little mini rant over here,
Oh, man.
saying it's hood and ghetto and
It
cool
is. And
and
cool at
hard.
it's like being black. It's dangerous, but it's lit.
Wow, I get
Oh,
it. I get it.
but to Laria's point, I do agree. I ain't gonna leave you out there. I do think it's funny, like when you be hearing married people talking about like thinking about single life, and you be like, look, you don't want to come
you
back out here. Like
don't do it.
stay where you at. You don't want to
Work
come
it
back out here.
out.
Work that out because it's hard out here. But like with anything in life, there's positives and negatives of things. So of course, like you said, single, if you get to travel when you want. I remember hearing like married friends being like me and Laria, we do something with a married friend. They'd be like, "Oh, let me check my husband." I was like, "Oh, you
I'd
got
be
to."
like, what?
We can't just get up and go or go on vacation or whatever. So
Right.
getting to make your own decisions, doing what you want to do, traveling, all that kind of stuff. I think the other side is too just with me. I'll say getting older. You're like, okay. I want somebody in life to like share all these things with one. So it's like you kind of want to start doing things with somebody or sharing things with someone. Also, I think just with me, want to have kids and a family and all this stuff. Like I went to see the Little Mermaid and I saw a little family there, and I was like, oh my gosh, like a family with their kids, like oh, all that kind of stuff. So I think like it's plus and minuses with anything. So with singleness, I
Right.
think it's the same thing. And I just think, like Maria said, just it's gonna take a lot of prayer, get you where you need to go, but a lot of faith. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. So
Okay. So look at the key word is look, singing this is hood and ghetto, and you gotta pray. You gotta stay prayed up. That's what I'm hearing from y'all.
yes.
But it's still good. It's good.
It-
You know, it has its pluses and minuses, just like
yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
You know,
All right, so look, let's hear the male perspective on this. I'm gonna let my brother kick this one off, man. I want to hear from you. We done heard from the women on Four Friends in the Book, bro. What's your thoughts about? Again, we're all unmarried, so single in that regard.
Mm.
What are your thoughts about singleness in today's time?
Well, in today's time, some I do agree to a certain extent that it is pee in the pool, but we also got filtration system to help clean up that sometimes. And I think and I think when we start going into situations or
Oh,
trying to actually mingle and get to know a person, you have to go in with a clean slate. That you want to actually get to know that person, the good and the bad. You can't go in looking for all the bad. Like you have to go in and be willing and actually doing the work to actually get to that good. So once you actually find that good, I think you actually going to be striking gold. Because when in the first 3 to 6 months, a guy pretty much gonna know if this is the right person for him, and that he feel that he can
mhm.
put the work in, that he want to spend the rest of his life with this person. And I think what I was stating earlier, like the communication, that's when the hard works begin. Like you're trying to put your life with that other person. Like even though you're not trying to actually, I want to say conjoin at that very beginning, but you're trying to actually bring that person into your world and actually trying to figure out that person in their world as well too. And I think that's the most interesting part of it. I wouldn't say singleness is all bad. Like you say, you getting to know this person, you getting to trying to figure that person out, you're getting to travel, eat, and go and do places that go to different places and experience different things with whoever you're trying to get to know. And I think that's the best part about being of trying to get to know a person. Like that's the openness of being vulnerable. And I know it's hard being vulnerable and you don't want to actually let a person into your deepest darkest secret, but how can they actually get to know you, the real you, not the surface part of, but the real you, what makes you tick, what do you like, what don't enjoy, if you let you being vulnerable with that person. So I think it's good and bad in each situation, but you also got to go in looking for the good and maintain and actually put in the work to actually keep that good and keep going with it.
Mhm. That's good. And
yeah,
let me
that
say,
is good.
look, I got one more little thing, and I'm gonna be done for real. I'll be done
Go
for
ahead,
real.
girl. Go ahead.
One more thing. But like with what I've noticed, even with the book, they got married younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're in your earlier years, now I'm in my 40s, so I understand if I would have gotten married in my 20s, I would have probably had those issues plus some. Because and like this goes back to what Isaiah said, you have to know who you are as a person and be whole as a person before you can be with someone else. And I think that's one of the issues with the singleness as well. And even with marriages, it goes back to, are you content in who you are? Are you good with your purpose? Do you know why you're here? Because when you go outside of that and you don't know, somebody in a relationship starts having an issue because it's like I enjoy doing this and I enjoy it. Well, now you don't need me anymore. You don't want me, da 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 da. And it's like, and she even talked about that. Melissa, she said his career started taking off, and she's like, well, what about me? Because my life
Mm-hmm.
isn't like that. And but she had to find out who she was more so that she could be satisfied in herself. And I think that that's the biggest thing now, even in dating and in marriages. If you really look at it, somebody's got an issue with the other person because of their not being whole in who they are, being good with them. So I
Gotcha.
think that's something that you just got a whole bunch of half people looking for somebody to validate them.
Mm-hmm.
when another person can't do that. That has to come from you.
Yeah,
Okay, but that's it.
that's
I'm done.
that's good.
I'm done.
Yeah, what season was that? We read Wholeness by Torrey Roberts.
It was
Mm-hmm.
season one.
Was that season one? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you guys hadn't checked it out, check that book out and also go check that episode out from us. We kind of talked about the similar concept of no one can no one can complete you. Like you have to come into a situation or
Right.
relationship as a whole person. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about completion, it's about complementing. So you want two
Mm-hmm.
whole people to complement each other. And so I think that that misconception often leads us astray. For me, I think we're not really taking advantage of our single seasons.
I've taken advantage.
But I think so. I think the notion right now is like, look, Loretta done passed out over there.
Over there, cut the mic.
Every time somebody tell me that, I'll be like, I did it all. I have traveled. I have gone out of the country. I have done everything I want to do.
But and so
But go
Well,
ahead, but keep going. That ain't for
but
every,
yeah,
but
so
that's
well,
my testimony.
I got a question for Laria.
oh,
What
look, it
what
get juicy now.
where are you finding these people at? Like, let's get to the root cause. Like, where you
Let me
picking
shut up.
these? Where you picking these people at?
I'm done talking. I can't say.
Because
Look at
if you
no
mean all the
comment,
same
no
if you mean
comment.
all the same people in the same place, that's the issue.
I can't even say.
That's the root cause.
Just random places.
Just random places, so it's not all in one
Yeah.
building on Sunday morning.
In the church house, the particular
Not
church,
in my church.
on a particular pew.
No. No.
But no, so and the real to your point, that is the time to really find yourself, to discover your joys, to travel, like Isaiah mentioned, to find out what makes you happy, to discover those things. But I think with our social media lifestyles, we put so much emphasis on, like, these couple goals and these vacations where people feel as if they can't do these things without the facade of partnership or relationships. And those things are cool, they're good, but if you're coming into these situations and that's your sole motivation and you're not really motivated about truly partnering with someone and having a successful marriage or a successful relationship, I think that's where we're missing the joys of singleness, where we should be taking this time to truly, define ourselves, to really get that sense of self and self
Mhm.
identity, so that when you do finally partner with someone, that you can, you know, take this upward mobility path of growing together and excelling, opposed to, having to chop each other down just to figure out where you guys stand. So I definitely feel like social media and just these couple goals and everything that we want to do collectively has stifled some of the progress and the motivations, because I think a lot of people are just going into it for the look. Like, people
Really?
always talk about, like, these marriage and couple goals, but
Mhm.
not realizing, like, the wedding is just the start. Like, that's the beginning of this supposedly lifelong journey.
Mhm.
Um, but there's so much emphasis on, like, just getting to that point, not realizing that there's a lot more work to be done thereafter. So, yeah, if you've done it all, if you found yourself, if you know who you are as a person, yeah, I think that's great. But we definitely have to make sure that we are taking full advantage of our single years, um, and so that when you do finally partner with someone, you are complimenting them and not having to, bring out this excessive baggage to the table, to the floor, to the room, to whatever it is
Mhm.
that you had time to deal and process those things, so that, when you do finally find somebody at the church, or wherever Isaiah said Laria find these men at,
He said, "Wait."
Where
that you
else
can,
besides our church?
yeah, but you can, you can really build and go forth, opposed to,
That's true.
having to do all this back end work to try to just get to normalcy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Like
And too, I
it's
think
hard
it's
out here in these
cultural.
streets.
Yeah, I think it's cultural too. Because like when I talk to my Caucasian friends, nobody tells them go and be whole and find yourself. And it's like very encouraged to go on and start a family. But I think in our culture as black men and black women, it's like, girl, you single. Like, and it's funny because with me and Kim can both attest to this. When we were in our 20s, it was like, oh snap, I wish I was in my 20s to travel with y'all. Y'all going to Cancun, y'all going to this, y'all going to that. Oh, cool. Then when we get our 30s, then everybody's face starts dropping like, oh, you still single? Oh, really? Then don't tell nobody you over. Well, what's going on with you? What it's like it's my fault now at this point. But I don't feel like my brother was 40 when he got married, but he didn't have that pressure that people put on me. And I don't think that Chris and Isaiah had the same pressure that me and Kim would have. If we went into a room and it's like, hey, and they like, oh, they single? Like, how old are they? They ain't got no kids. And that's another thing. Don't talk about the children. You single and ain't got no kids. What? But if it's a dude that comes in, girl, and he ain't got no kids, it's like, what? Awesome, And it's like if you all tell somebody I'm out traveling, just finding myself, it's like, great, good job. Everybody will clap you up. But if for females, it's like a whole nother standard. And that's what really be burning me up too. Rant number 3 for the
I know.
night.
Let it out, Reed.
I'm
Let it
tired.
out.
That's why I'm going off. I
I'm
should have got me
Look,
some
tired.
sleep
look,
before I
look,
came to
look. We didn't
before
Sleep
have
be
the
I
rant for
came
hard.
today.
tonight. I'm
We don't have
tired.
it for tonight. We had the rant.
Yeah, well, no, that's good.
Rant
Even that was
number
a point
3.
within the book as well. So even the double standard of sex. So Kevin talked about how even within the church, like the boys were kind of they were always taught like, look, I was like they would talk about the older guys like I was out there back in the day, I had my fun, but I'm saved now and this and that or whatever. Whereas for the women, it was always about like maintaining that purity and
Mhm.
not doing those same
Mm-hmm.
things. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean there is a double standard when it comes to just male and female singleness or dating or even just how you approach relationships. But to your other point, Laria, and I think we kind of talked about it. I think it was when we did the conversation by Hill Harper. I think culturally for Black people, like we don't always get the joys and the privileges of just being kind of carefree in our younger years. So for us, it's always the pressure, like trying to make it and become successful. So like once you do get there, it's like, all right, now I just need to, enjoy the fruit of my labor and these
Mm-hmm.
things. So for a lot of successful Black men and women, like the marriage is kind of put on the back burner because you work so hard just to matriculate through college or your professional life or your
Mhm.
career to support your family or give back to your community or do whatever you're trying to do, that like it takes that time. And often you're not really thinking about marriage in those early years, like you trying to make it and just get to a place of being comfortable. So
That's true.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think there is a cultural difference as well, just based on the access we have as a people. So, but yeah, that was good. Look, we done got a mini rant over here
Mhm.
from Laria Reed
Couple.
about the relationship. She went in like 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
passed out, came back, and went in
Uh-huh. What's
again.
going on?
That's good. So look, we just wrapped up our discussion. Look, singleness be hard too. Like I know we just read Marriage Be Hard by Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. So again, if you guys haven't checked that out, good selection. Kev on stage, Mrs. Kev on stage. If you guys follow them on social media, they just hilarious and always just keep you rolling with their content. But they've also blessed us with a book, a very practical information about marriage. And we had a discussion here about singleness be hard because like marriage might be hard, but you got to be single before you get married. And yeah, this in the words of Miss Laria Reed, the singleness is the ghetto. So
But it's
all
lit.
right, well look, if y'all know how this show works on Four Friends in a Book over here, y'all already know what time it is. Our favorite segment of the show. have it every episode. Wouldn't be an episode without it, which we entitle The Rant. Coming from our good brother, Mr. Isaiah Toots, Mr. Rant Man himself. Now look, Isaiah, the real done hit you with like a few pre-rants already, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to recover and then
I
really get
can't.
into it
I
like you
can't match
want
the
to.
real. I can't match her.
But it's up here. My brother speaks from his heart, uninterrupted. We don't really debate it. We don't contest it. Look, we never even know what he's gonna talk about. It's just always him speaking from the heart. Like he may rant on the real rant. We never know. But my brother, the floor is yours. 60 seconds uninterrupted. Starting now. Go.
John Wayne, an Asian American student from Florida, is one of the plaintiffs in a Supreme Court case, Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard. John appears to be a good student, scoring 1590 on the SAT and a 4.65 GPA. However, he was denied admission to all 6 colleges he applied for. John quickly jumped to conclusion that he was denied admissions based on affirmative action. He even claimed that the Students for Fair Admissions informed him that black students had a higher chance of admissions to the competitive institution than Asian American students. So many people think black students, one, get into any college they want to, two, that our entry isn't based on merit, and three, that we go to school for free. John, you are grossly unprepared for this conversation. Between legacy admits, inside connections, and certain kids having privilege in the admissions process, only a few seats remain for affirmative action. If all he brought to the table were high test scores, nothing else, and there was no reason for him not to be accepted when they had more well-rounded candidates. If he thinks affirmative actions is to blame, admissions notice his odd behavior during the admission process. Also, it is possible to be very good at taking tests, also having the application skills of an ice cream cone. But blaming the 5% of black students for not getting into a school where you will be 30% of the population is exactly why you aren't smart enough to go there. And that's that on that.
Look, the intelligence of an
Okay.
ice cream cone. That's good, brother. That's good. As always, man, we appreciate you just educating us on things that are going on within our country, within our local government, within this nation, within this world. So thank you again, once again, for your rant. All right. Four Friends in the Book. We just wrapped up Marriage Be Hard by Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. Had our discussion about singleness be hard
Mm-hmm.
and had a pre-rant by Laria, and my brother just killed his rant as well. So Isaiah, tell them about what we have coming up next from Four Friends in the Book podcast.
Hey guys, before we let you go, my friends and I here at Four Friends in the Book want to thank you for rocking with us for 3 seasons. This is our last episode for season 3, but we'll be back and better than ever in the month of September. Lareal, please let the viewers know when they can catch us.
So you can catch us on YouTube. Please go to our Four Friends in a Book. I know that you subscribed. I hope that you subscribed to our
Please.
YouTube channel. You can go there and view us and see all of our episodes while we're off because we had some really great books that we reviewed. So please do that.
Four Friends in a Book is on all podcasting services, so make sure you can check us out on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. And on social media, make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram.
And as always, guys, we appreciate your support for continuing to just be on this journey with us here on Four Friends in the Book podcast. And as always, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow. Let's have a discussion here on Four Friends in the Book. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.